2 of the 4 games on home soil. So where do you think this game is going at home? Which of the two sides? The Dutch will have fancied their chances coming in. Remember, they hold a 3-2 head-to-head record in one-day international cricket over Nepal. And they've generally been in very good form in this league too. They were the table-topping side after 2 really good tours. They were unbeaten down in Windhoek in Namibia, taking on Canada and Namibia down there, and then they only lost the 1 game at home. And that was that remarkable match in Utrecht. End of the 3rd over. It's a maiden over from Vivian Kingma. Good stuff from him. 12 for none. And what that has done is given the Dutch not the table topping position anymore, because the USA went back past them after picking up 3 wins from 4 over Canada and Oman in Florida. Klein is hammering that one into the thigh pad. That very dark cloud has now taken that sun away, as I told you it would. You can just see how dark it's looking here. It's not quite that dark in person as you're seeing on your TV camera right now. But you can see there, look at that. I think hopefully it's just going to skirt around the top. Klein continues to probe away. Arjan Dutt, one of the substitutes for the Netherlands today, has just come over to the commentary box, and he said he's never seen me, and all the times he's seen me wearing gloves when I've commentated. I've got the gloves on, the beanie on. I've got 5 layers on too, Arjan. Don't know how you're trotting around. What's he got? Oh, he got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, he's got 4 on, does Arjan? We've got 5 on here. Kyle Klein's hardcore though, he's just got the 1. Brilliant bowler to watch is Kyle Klein. Very dark, isn't it? Down the leg side. Have to be conscious of that wind. If you're just joining us for the 2nd innings, that wind is blowing very strongly across the ground. So it's coming, as you look now, from left to right or from off to leg. That's forcing the deliveries into the pads. Klein's success has been built upon bowling at the stumps. As you can see there, we saw 1 5 wides down the leg side, and it's an interesting change. I'm not sure one that Mel Farrell or I have spotted yet, but Scott Edwards doesn't have the gloves on. And that is a big decision. He's been ever present with the gloves on, but Noah Kroos, who is the reserve keeper in the squad, he has the gloves on instead. I think that's because of the treatment that we saw Edwards receive to that gluteus muscle.
Well, I did actually notice, because the first time that Kroos dived, I actually automatically said it was Edwards with the dive, and then saw the number on his back and thought, hang on a second.
Well, Edwards isn't on the field right now. It's Shariz Ahmed, isn't it, a backward point. So that's really ominous. First game of the tour. We saw about a 5-6 minute stoppage in play, didn't we? As Klein is really getting his velocity up. This is your first time seeing Kyle Klein up and close and in person. Amazing bowler, isn't he? Because if you look at him, there's not much to him. He's what, 5'9", 5'9.5", 5'10", but he has this incredible streak though that he's on, I think it's 12 consecutive games of taking 2 wickets or more in an ODI. And he just finds a way consistently to be very effective. 4 being bowled, 15 for none.
We're just looking at his figures for that most recent round of games that Netherlands had at home. The ODI is part of this Cricket World Cup League 2. And they read pretty well. 2 for 43, 2 for 58, 4 for 44, 3 for 60.
Yeah, the 4 for 44 is a player of the match performance against the UAE in Kampong. It's 10 consecutive innings. He's taken 2 or more. That's driven, square driven through the gap between cover and extra cover, and will race to the rope and be a fine boundary for Asif Sheikh, who played out 6 dots from Kingma's previous over, picked the fielders. This time he picks the gap.
It was a lovely stroke. Actually travelling at a reasonable rate in these early overs. I love seeing cricketers in glasses, by the way. Do love someone bowling in glasses. Sometimes see the spinners doing it, less so with the fast bowlers. I mentioned before these 2 openers for Nepal got the motto, a partnership of 72. Scored in 12 overs. If they can get something like that going again today, they'll go a long way to bringing down this total required.
Good diving stop, excellent work. Yeah, for the Dutch to defend this total, they're not just going to have to bowl well, they'll have to at least match Nepal's fielding, which was exemplary throughout that first innings. And it's exactly what you'd imagine they will do. Just hard to overstate how difficult the conditions are. Now, what Nepal did so well was kind of utilise them to their favour. They should be confident of chasing this total down. What a dream start it would be to maybe the toughest tour that you can have in this league in these conditions, away to the 2 premier European associate sides. But as we know with the Cardiac Kids, things can change and change quickly, so I wouldn't be saying that they're going to necessarily get there in comfort, even if they do get there, but they're in a very good position.
Well, I always say that making predictions is a mug's game, but I feel that with Nepal, it's more than a mug's game. Sometimes it'll make something easy look a bit difficult, sometimes make the impossible look realistic. You just never know. Whatever it is, they'll be in the fight though. And just wondering with Scott Edwards off the field, Lenny, so who's taking on the captaincy role at the moment for Netherlands?
Well, that's a good question. I think it might be a combination of Max O'Dowd in terms of kind of leading the troops and maybe making the bowling changes, but he'll get a lot of assistance from Roelof van der Merwe.
One of the main reasons I ask is those bowling changes.
Cut away. Sort of looked like half a stop, but I think it's going to be a stop that won't stop the ball from getting to the rope. Paul van Meekeren chases a long way around and chases in vain, and it's the subfielder Shariz Ahmed who's at the misfield. A lovely moment there from the fan who gets to say hello to Paul van Meekeren.
You can see all those chairs. I think they've all blown over in the wind. That was nicely played in the end, just picking out the gap. Yeah, the reason I say that about the bowling changes is that that's something that Rohit Paudel handled really well for Nepal. A number of times making a bowling change, a wicket following.
Oh, glorious over pitch, yes, but well, what a flourish and real aplomb it was driven with by Asif Sheikh. Nepal are growing in confidence. Kingma back-to-back boundaries he concedes from the final over. Final ball of his third over. It's 28 for none.
Over pitch, but also width. Takes nothing away from a fine stroke from Sheikh. Just might be a little bit disrupting as well in general for the Netherlands side, not having their captain. You can see them out there at the moment. They're sort of pointing and trying to work out fielding positions, moving in, moving out. Just a little bit of indecision. Klein to continue.
Klein will go full. That's what he does, particularly in the first spell. Come back to more of a length that'll kiss the top of off stump, but with the new ball, he tries to get really full, bring the catchers into play, and he feels as though his role is to take wickets. And the Dutch, they need early wickets. Both Birtel and Sheikh in particular impressed in this opening partnership. Didn't really see anything in terms of any demons in the pitch in the first innings. I thought it was just some exemplary bowling in general from Nepal and some fantastic fielding. Shorter this time, cut, and a fantastic diving stop from Shariz Ahmed. Saves 4. I think 225 is under par, Mel.
Well, we sort of thought around 240, didn't we? 240, 250? Originally, it didn't look like Netherlands were going to get there because they kept losing those wickets, but also that fielding that you spoke about, they kept it very tight.
Well, they would have saved easily 30 runs in the field, and then you take all the catches as well, all of which were taken, and you're just looking at a performance where it wasn't perfect. There was a few too many wides, but just the quality of fielding was so good. And on such a difficult day where the wind is causing havoc for everyone involved. Yeah, 225 feels very light. They're going to need something special with the ball.
Well, they're going to need wickets. I really think that's the only way, especially with Nepal getting off to a pretty good start again. One thing at this stage, Netherlands were actually 2 wickets down. They were 1 for 1, and then they were 2 for 16, or if I go the other way, 1 for 1 and 16 for 2. I have to remember I'm not in Australia. But, then they had a good partnership between O'Dowd and Edwards. It just steadied the ship somewhat, but you saw this Nepal in the first game, just getting off to a really good start chasing. I just suspect that really the currency for Netherlands is going to be wickets.
It was Singh and Edwards that came together. O'Dowd was dismissed.
Sorry,
dismissed early. Yeah.
Singh and Edwards, pardon me.
He'd probably got the memo from the first game in the series. He'd seen that scoring easier. Two new balls that are in operation, and as a consequence he was trying to get after Karen Casey, ended up getting himself in a complete muddle and really yorked himself. Good over from Kyle Klein, just 2 coming from it, 6 have been bowled. It's 30 for none. Yeah, the challenge for me, the thing that could change this game is Paul van Meekeren. He's got an X factor that you don't see a huge amount even at the Premier Associate level in this ICC Men's Cricket World Cup League 2. He can get it up to above 140 kilometres per hour. I thought the way he bowled, particularly in that first game at the VRA, where he picked up 3 for 24, it was 10 wickets in the series for him. He was player of the match that day. There was UAE batters trying to do anything they could to not face him. Alishan Sharifu was hit multiple times, the captain. Errol Chopra was struck another number of times. He can be fast, he can be fearsome, and now he's into the attack. If Nepal keep Van Meekeren wicketless, or even to one wicket, they win this game. I think it's that simple. But Van Meekeren could turn this game on its head, so don't go anywhere if you're watching at home. This spell and his subsequent spells will be critical. And Asif Sheikh continues along his merry way, drives it through the covers for a couple. And Van Meekeren has struck. It's only taken him 2 balls. We said that he's going to be the point of difference, the difference maker. And the big, tall, fired up fast bowler has Asif Sheikh dismissed for 19.
Well, the impact almost immediate. And they needed it too, the Netherlands. Yeah, just full and straight. Finds the breakthrough, finds the stumps. And Nepal lose their first wicket. It's Sheikh gone for 19, 32 for 1.
Disappointed Asif Sheikh, who trudges off. Yeah, this ball hasn't done a lot. Maybe just held its line, kept a tiny bit low. It was full, it was straight, it was
Fast.
Another big drive attempted by Paul Van Meekeren, but it's the extra velocity, Mel, isn't it? And that extra pace has burst through Asif Sheikh. Well, we said Nepal were on top. We said Nepal could be thinking about 2 wins from 2. They never do things easy. Here comes Bim Sharkey. The game twists and turns in the first power play, and it's Paul Van Meekeren, the man who's made the difference.
Long, long way to go in this yet. And I certainly won't be making any predictions at this time, but it has been the introduction of Van Meekeren. High quality.
The incredible thing about the Dutch side and the setup, we talked about that total cricket in the first half, that the brand they like to play. Even though they've got an under par score on the board, the talk in their camp at the halfway stage won't have been about why they should have got more runs. It'll be about how and why we're going to defend this total, whatever total that is that they have up there. They've got a lot of belief. And in Van Meekeren, they've got, particularly with Chris Sole not being available right now, I know Gavin Main's coming in for the T20s. You can see there the front foot very close to the no-ball line, but just about okay. That was the attempted drive of Sheikh that was beaten. But there are not many fast bowlers. Ali Khan from the United States can get it up over 140, certainly earlier in his career. But there's not many who you would describe as right arm or left arm fast. Van Meekeren is that. And the other thing he brings is bounce, and that's what Nepal will maybe be even less used to in terms of the extra bounce as much as the extra pace.
Yeah, he towers above everyone else out there, Van Meekeren. And this pitch, this hybrid pitch of Fort Hill, has actually at times had a bit of extra bounce in it. So with that with the Nepal batters.
Beauty, really well bowled. Van Meekeren, well, what a great bowling change. I'm not 100% certain who it is making the changes. I suspect it's Max O'Dowd, given he's positioned himself there in mid-off. Scott Edwards off the field, a reminder. It looks like he's not going to play any part. Going to try and get an update on that in between the overs for you. But if O'Dowd is the one who's made the bowling change, it's been an inspired one.
It certainly has. Coming in the 7th over, so just the 3 overs early on from Kingma.
good start from Paul van Meekeren. A wicket in just 2 runs from his first 7 have been bowled. 32 for 1.
Bim Sharkey. New batter in, but it's Boutel who's opening spell.
Yeah, just got confirmation there from the Dutch support staff. Thanks. It's the 2 Ryans, as I like to call them, Ryan Cook and Ryan van Niekerk, the alongside Heino Kuhn, that make up the 3 main coaches for the Dutch. Yeah, confirming. I don't think we're going to see Scotty Edwards this innings. So big concern over the rest of his series. Imagine Wes Barassi is going to have to be thinking about coming into action. It is Max O'Dowd who is captaining. The bails are again blown off, this time at the non-striker's end. And a very, very dark set of clouds is going to start to roll in. We will give you Duckworth Lewis Stern updates as we get them. We still have a full 50 over game right now. To give you an idea as to what Nepal would be, let's say they end up 2 down, they'd need to be 75 at the 20 over marker to be ahead of Duckworth Lewis Stern. And as soon as we get to 20 overs in the second innings, we'll have an official game. It looks like the sun is going to be gone for, well, quite a while here, Mel, and we might have a lengthy piece of overcast weather, and the wind seems to be getting stronger and stronger again. But O'Dowd is captaining, Edwards is off the field, and the information we have is he will not be out there again during this innings.
Well, that is a big blow. It really is. And might be a big blow for this series, this round of matches as well.
There's a great saying in football. I'm no football fan. I'm probably going to get the city wrong, but great saying in football, oh, it's all well and good doing it on the easy days, you know, the cup final days at Wembley and the like. But can they do it on a cold Tuesday night in Preston or in Middlesbrough or whichever city the same? Today feels like that kind of day, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's the, you know, it's all well and good making 100 on a flat deck at the Oval when the sun is streaming down and the bowlers are being overworked. Can you contribute on a day like today? This is when the going gets tough today.
Yeah, it's actually hard to convey watching at home, especially when you see the sun shining, just how difficult it is.
Brilliant length from Klein.
Oh, yes.
No idea how the sun is shining because we just had a massive patch of clouds roll in, and I thought that was going to be that for probably a few hours. It'll disappear in about 5 minutes, I think.
Yeah, there's just one little break in the clouds that...
It's just about to go.
Yeah, it's right in the sun, but the wind has definitely picked up in the past 5 minutes as well. Up around 22, 23 miles an hour, maybe a bit more than that, I think, actually, heading up towards 30 miles an hour. Really ferocious winds.
Down the leg side as Kroos does the fielding. Do see Lorenzo Mayer and Dean Munaswame walking around in shorts. The lunatics. What are they doing in shorts? I'm going to see if I can get an update on Scott Edwards. I'll come back to you.
Do that. When I see people in shorts, I want to actually do them physical harm because it's making me feel even colder. They just walk past us too. It should be illegal to have bear calves in this. Really is some of the most difficult conditions I have experienced, and that's just in the commentary tent. Again beaten. This has been a terrific over from Klein. Just bowling at good length. They've just put put the brakes on things after it looked like Nepal were getting off to a reasonably brisk start. The introduction of Paul van Meekeren, combining with a very tidy climb, has just slowed things down a touch. Nicely driven, but straight to the fielder. That's another good over from Klein, and at the end of 8, it's 33 for 1. What have you found out, Lenny?
Yeah, we've established that I thought it was a glute injury for Scotty Edwards. Appears to be something down in the hamstring. Hopefully not terminal in terms of his participation for the series. Don't think anyone's suggesting that, but we're highly unlikely to see him for the rest of this second innings. It means that Noah Kroos has got the gloves on, and it means that Max O'Dowd is captaining as Paul van Meekeren comes in for his second. Looks for that Yorker. Probably doesn't need to look for the Yorker, does he? It's going to be particularly to Sharkey, who's diminutive in stature, it's going to be the pace and the bounce that will cause a threat to him.
Maybe he was just trying to repeat the ball that was responsible for the first wicket, coming in just the second ball of his first over. And just getting the lines slightly wrong. That wind really is picking up at the moment. My goodness.
Does go full again. One-handed pickup, gone the wrong end. Oh, and if Teja Nidamanoru is thrown at the non-striker's end, he's going to have 2 stumps to aim at. He's remarkably gone for a backhanded flick to the keeper when all his momentum was going towards the stumps. Crazy piece of cricket. What a piece of fielding at first. Made good ground to his left, picked it up cleanly. Because Bim Sharkey had dropped his bat, he might even have had time to run it into the stumps. But instead he goes for a flick to that end, and well, Bertel was always getting home. This one's carved away with real aplomb. Races to the rope for 4.
That pleasing the Nepal fans. You can see them out there, flags waving. The cold isn't bothering them. They just spent quite a bit of time with I like to say Nepal for fans, but they're just as much fans of Andrew Leonard as well.
Don't know about that, Mel, but I know they love their cricket, and I love my cricket. Yeah, it was great. Probably, I don't know, 200, maybe 220 in today, something like that. Met basically every one of them during the break. And the stories that they have for you in terms of the journeys that not just they've made to come to watch today, but the journeys they're taking in their life. I've met young students who are at university in Aberdeen and in Edinburgh. I've met fans who came on a train from Preston and Manchester and Birmingham. I met several fans who've driven from London, one of which drove overnight and hasn't been to bed yet, which I'm not sure how safe that is if he's planning to drive back tonight. Fans who've flown from Dublin in Ireland, from Malta in Europe, from Belgium, and one, he wasn't lying to me because I asked him 3 times, then I asked him for evidence of the airplane ticket, who flew from Calgary. Somebody flew from Calgary to be here, and he's here for all 3 of the remaining ODIs. He's here for a full week. Yeah, the passion, the joy and the love of cricket and the pride of, I think it's something that only those who've ever emigrated can understand. The pride of being from the part of the world you're from and representing your nation in another part of the world is so apparent to see, and lovely to hear those stories. The one that got me from the World Cup this day last year was the fan that I met, and then I went up to the commentary box to tell Ian Bishop about it, who had sold his car in Australia, in Melbourne, to be there. He said, well, we might not go to another World Cup for another decade, so I'm not missing out on it. I've got a friend in Texas, I'll sleep on his couch. I don't have the money for the ticket, but I'll sell my car. And it's stuff like that. I just gets across the scale of passion for the game in Nepal.
That's an incredible story. I actually remembered reading about that. I think that might have made it into the press as well.
It was quite funny actually. I went up to the commentary box at the end of the ninth, 40 for 1. The television commentary box, that is, in that fantastic Major League stadium. And Bish was off air at the time, and I've been lucky enough to broadcast and work a little bit with Bish. And for all of us in the industry, we all look up to him, kind of Uncle Bish, he's affectionately referred to as by many. And he was saying, Lenny, you always told me Nepal was special, but I never expected it to be quite like this in Texas, of all places. And actually there's a massive Nepalese community in and around Dallas in particular, and that's why many would have, not travelled far to be there. But there was, I think that day when I went around the crowd, I counted over 40 states within America that fans had come from, Nepal fans that is. There was a hardcore of about 100 Dutch fans as well, can't rule them out either. But it was that story that, as I went round the crowd, ended up randomly with some American police with me for a bit of it, because they were getting scared by the number of photo requests. Bizarre, totally bizarre. But the fan that I spoke to who'd come from Australia, I said, Bish, I've got a great sound. It almost took his breath away when I told him, and he said, do you mind if I tell that on air? And I said, mate, I don't mind if you tell on air. I'd love if you tell it on air, because it helps get across the scale of what we're talking about in terms of love of cricket. And he did it infinitely better than I ever would have. So well that it did indeed get picked up by many quarters of the press. And that day was particularly intoxicating. It was, I'm pretty sure, a midweek game with I think it might have been an 11 a.m. local time start, or maybe a 10 a.m. local time start, but there was a cataclysmic thunderstorm that threatened the whole match and ended up with delaying the start by about an hour. And all that meant was there was an extra hour for the Nepal fans to get stuck into the beverages and make it even more of a party affair. I believe they sold out of all concession stalls on the day. It was 7,200, I think, is the capacity of the MLC stadium in Grand Prairie. It felt a bit more like 30 or 40,000 there that day. Good diving stop at cover point by Lion Cachet as he wrings his hand out with the pain from the cold. But that's what World Cups for me should be all about, Mel.
Yeah.
The story of the Ugandan fans who travelled to Guyana. We saw Papua New Guinea very nearly beat the West Indies on home soil, pushed them right to the brink. We saw Canada beating Ireland, we saw USA beating Pakistan. That 20-team World Cup was a kind of great step into the unknown, wasn't it? And I think it's here to stay.
Well, I certainly hope so. It felt for me like the first real World Cup, probably since 2015, the ODI World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. Just to have the variety of fans, the colour. Sometimes you find, I've even found that with Zimbabwe in Australia for the 2022 World Cup, which wasn't as big, but Zimbabwe was there. They got my vote for the fans of that tournament. They were incredible, and you spoke to some of those fans in Australia there from Zimbabwe, and they didn't necessarily weren't even cricket fans. The opportunity to support Zimbabwe was what had drawn them along, and I think there were some of them who became cricket fans during that World Cup because of it.
It's surely what we want, isn't it? Welcome
sure
more
is.
people into our game. Again, the gusts really breezing around us. Yeah, there was certainly good performances by the associates. Canada's win over Ireland was a very fine one. USA beating Pakistan via that drama, the super over. But there could have been so many more big upsets, couldn't there? Scotland were all over England like a hot rash.
Oh, they were
Barbados.
Well all over them, but that rain got called off. But Scotland gave Australia a very good game in St Lucia as well.
I describe it as more than that. You're sounding like a true blue Aussie fan for the first time.
I thought that it was just at the end.
They had them on the rack. The absolute
just
rack.
Just at the end.
Stoinis played a once-in-a-lifetime innings. It was almost Maxwell-esque. He made 59 off 29. Yeah, they were right up against it. Glenn Maxwell dismissed in the 9th over. They needed over 2 a ball at one stage.
Yeah, it was just that annoying Australian ability to find someone to produce that kind of innings. But Brandon McMullen, he was brilliant that day. They'd followed up. They had a fantastic win against Namibia, Scotland. And they'd put them within touching distance of the Super 8s. And gosh, if they'd managed to get over the line against Australia, that would have really turned things on its head.
And typically, as we often see it, you think back to that 2015 World Cup, quite often the associate v associate games
Yes, are the closest
are
ones.
the best games in the tournament. So you think about Scotland, Afghanistan down in Dunedin in 2015. Shapur Zadran, who could barely hold a bat, hitting, who was he with? Samuel Shinwari, wasn't it? Sprawling out across the turf as robbed Scotland of what would have been their first ever World Cup win. Papua New Guinea, Uganda last year. The Super Over, you were probably there, were you? For, was that Oman, Namibia, wasn't it? In Bridgetown in Barbados, as Namibia somehow came back.
That was the first game there. I was there. Well, this has always been my argument when people argue against associates being in it. And I really dislike the term minnows. I really don't like that term.
Nicely bowled by Van Meekeren, beats the outside edge. It's a question I've been asked in several different podcasts, media appearances I've done, stuff like that. But why do you call it associate cricket at all? And I think it's a good question. I'm not in any way disparaging the question. I think if you don't call it associate cricket, it doesn't give you something to categorise it as. It doesn't give you something to explain the struggle and the endeavour that the men and the women and the boys and girls in these countries have to go through to try and reach parity on the world stage. You know, for an associate team, any associate team to qualify for any World Cup is a major achievement. Even now, the 20-team World Cup, Zimbabwe missed out in the last qualifier.
Yeah.
They just beaten Pakistan in Perth in the previous World Cup in front of all those fans.
Yeah.
You're talking about. So, for an associate team to get to a World Cup is a massive achievement. And I think there's a brand of associate cricket. I don't think if we brought Steve Smith and Glenn Maxwell here today to Dundee, they'd particularly fancy it. It's tough. You play in different conditions. You can play in very adverse ones like we are today. And every match is cutthroat. Every match has meaning. Every match has context. That's why it's so enthralling. That's why it's so engaging. So that's what associate cricket is. This is whipped away in front to square. Should be at least a couple. He's going to get to the rope. Tejan Idamanoru can only escort it there. Little bit aerial, but Bertel will get a boundary.
And so Bertel just starting to wind up a little bit now. Just take another look at that. It's aerial for a little while, but very, very safe. It's a vacant space. Just timed really well. I've made that point when I've made this argument about not reducing the number of teams. So pulled away nicely. It won't get to the rope this time. At 2 though. The fact that you went back to that last World Cup that had a decent number of teams in Australia and New Zealand and went through the different results and the matches that involved at least one associate side were the more exciting, closer matches, and there were some massive blowouts that involved 2 of the full member nations, really one-sided matches. So when people say, well, it'll make for, you know, they'll just get smashed or it won't be very exciting, but it'll be too one-sided, I just don't think that argument holds water. Can happen to any side.
And in reality, there is the occasional blowout.
Yeah, but there is between 2 full member nations as well.
Absolutely. And, you know, a performance like Oman's that day against England was a bit of a calamity in front of a baying English press pack in Antigua. Bowled it out for 47. That was an Oman team in transition, the end of one era going into the next. But what people don't remember is that a week prior in Bridgetown, they restricted Australia to 160 on a good surface. In fact, at one stage it looked like they'd restrict them to about 120 or 130, but again it was a fantastic comeback from Marcus Stoinis, who made 67 off 36, but he was dropped. They were in big trouble in that game. Really were. Aki Bilias took one of the catches, the greatest catches in World Cup history, off Mehran Khan, sprawling at extra cover. Very reminiscent of the Zishan Maqsood one of Paul Sterling in the T20 World Cup in Dharamshala in 2016. So, again, the problem, I think, with some of the associate performances, and I'm saying this as an associate fan, is that it only matters if they win.
Yeah.
And that's the horrible thing. But it's also the reality, because the majority of the press corps and the media coverage and the punditry around cricket is driven by the full member nations. There's some notable exceptions. In the UAE, there's an active press corps. Paul Radley does an amazing job at the national. Bertus de Jong in the Netherlands. We see Binod Pandey here, Subhash and all the guys back in Nepal. Papua New Guinea, there's good coverage of the game. In Uganda too. But the reality is the vast majority of the coverage of world cricket is from the full member nations, and they actually don't. They only care when an associate wins. So if they push them all the way to the brink, like Nepal did against South Africa, it's a footnote for half a day. But if South Africa had lost that game, it's a huge story, and that's the heartbreak of it. Now the brilliance of it is that 3 in every 4 years in the men's game and the women's game, we get 2 T20 World Cups and 1 World Cup. And with the expansion of the women's game, we're now going to see a position whereby there'll be guaranteed associate spots in almost all the World Cups, not the Women's ODI World Cup, but the other 3 events, yes. So we should see at least some associate presence at 3 of the 4 major World Cups, and in the men's and women's games, they're 3 of 4 years. So those chances that felt so infrequent in the previous right cycle, in between 2015 and 2023, where we dropped at one point to 1 T20 World Cup every 4 years. That was a decision that was immediately reversed after just 1 edition. We dropped down to a 10-team 50-over World Cup in the men's format as the 50 comes up here. Those days are in the past, and the associates, thanks to primarily to the ICC pathways, have more games and opportunities to improve than ever. They're still doing it on threadbare budgets, yes. They still get a real fraction of the full member funding. But at least they're getting more playing opportunities to develop and get better. When you play more cricket, you get better. It's pretty simple. So I think we saw 3 associate wins, didn't we, over full members at the last World Cup in USA and the Caribbean. If the associates can adjust to the conditions in India and Sri Lanka, I think we'll definitely see more in that next World Cup. And remember, we could see 9 associates there again. Namibia and Uganda, they'll be the incumbents down in that Africa qualifier. Zimbabwe will have to play well to qualify, even though they've home advantage.
I think that's certainly almost more than a possibility, almost a probability. And you have to remember too, I think part of it comes because they play all of their cricket in pressure situations. Tournament play is so different to bilateral play, and these associate players come into all of those tournaments kind of battle hardened when it comes to tournament play, and I think that does make a pretty huge difference. One thing I think I would like to say, I have actually written about this recently. I would like to see more reward for sides for moving up the rankings. So by that I look at someone like Scotland women, who were in Pakistan for those World Cup qualifiers, and they qualified for that qualifying tournament, whereas Zimbabwe didn't. And they also beat West Indies, the full member nation, and they didn't end up qualifying. It's pulled hard, but there's Fielder in the right position. So yes, Scotland women, they qualified ahead of Zimbabwe, who didn't make it. They beat West Indies. They've moved up the rankings. But because they didn't qualify, they don't actually have any more fixtures scheduled for this year. So I would like to see a bit more reward for the teams that actually move up past the full member nations in the rankings. Incentive.
Good piece of fielding that by Shariz Ahmed, the subfielder. Deep mid-wicket. Ends Michael Levitt's introduction to the attack. He's come in with his right arm medium pace, the Burley. He's going to be telling me now that he's an all-rounder, not an opening batter, the amount he's bowling of late. 12 have been bowled, 52 for 1 the score. Andrew Leonard here with Mel Farrell. Would love to hear your thoughts on the development and the positive developments of the associate game and how it continues to gain following and support, and how the players, the men and women, continue to, well, really push against the glass ceiling and push the performance levels through to new breakthroughs and to new heights. Get in touch, use that hashtag CWCL2. You can message me directly, Andrew Leonard. Type in Melinda Farrell, she'll pop up. She's that popular on Twitter or Instagram. There's only floating around the world, I'm sure. There's only one Mel Farrell.
Actually, there's another one who is, I believe, a Rockette. You know, the dancer in the New York Radio City Rockettes?
Oh, yeah, yeah. There was a Mel Farrell.
There is a Melinda Farrell. It's exactly my name.
Well, maybe there's only one Mel Farrell then. She was a Melinda. Sunshine has somehow returned, despite the skies not making it look likely. Very, very gratefully received, because it's adding just a degree or two of temperature, and it's helping keep Paulie van Meekeren's big long limbs moving. Bertel and Sharkey survived him for the moment though, and start to grow in confidence. A nice on drive. Be cut off by Roelof van der Merwe, who's probably going to start loosening his shoulders quite shortly. Yeah, I think the reality is that for a number of reasons, next year's World Cup in February, with 20 teams, at least 8 associates in it, is going to be one to really look forward to. You would hope that the BCCI and Sri Lanka Cricket can get the venues announced nice and early, so we can give fans lots of an opportunity to anticipate where they're going to travel to. Would love to see the Indian fans kind of almost adopt an associate team each. I'd love to see that. I don't know how. I'm going to try and start that campaign myself somehow if I can. If Nepal qualify, you won't believe the number of Nepalese fans who will beg, steal or borrow away across the border. And again, you know, if you're putting together a schedule, if Delhi and Dharamshala are being used as venues, put Nepal's group up there, you'll have the best crowds of the whole tournament, barring the India games and the Sri Lanka games. For them, good hook shot to the rope again. Nida Minoru just escorts it. That's a fine stroke from Kushal Bertel.
Yeah, you feel like he's just started to warm up. Loss of the early wicket and kept him pretty quiet. But here, yeah, he just rode that bounce really well, picked it up.
Yeah, I would suspect that Kushal Bertel has really enjoyed this move back up to the top of the order. Didn't quite understand what was going on in Canada. He was being had a little bit of a dry run up at the top of the order, and thought he played really well the other day. And again, we're seeing a bright start despite the loss of Asif Sheikh. Nepal are in full control. Not quite sure where outside of Van Meekeren, where the threat comes from. Kyle Klein bowled brilliant comeback spells. He'll be one that Max O'Dowd, who's captaining, I think he's captaining the Netherlands for the first time technically, even though he's not the listed captain on the day. Scott Edwards off the field right now. Will probably turn to pretty soon, and you'd imagine Roelof van der Merwe will come in to the game as well. Short, no edge on that, as it ends Van Meekeren's 4th over. That might be the end of him for the moment. They like to use him in short bursts. 13 bowled, it is 58 for 1. Get a look at the batting card here, Mel, and just see there's a lot of depth, isn't there? We saw that heroic knock by Karen KC down at number 9, but he got support, didn't he? From Gulshan Jha, who played so well. Sandy Plamachani hung about with them for a bit too, and even Rajbanshi will hold up an end. So Nepal will just not worry too much about the required run rate and keep themselves in this contest. They're in control right now.
Yeah, they are, and will have taken real confidence from the depth of their batting lineup that stood up in that match a couple of days ago against Scotland. Oh, flamingo flick.
Yeah, outstanding from Sharkey. That's going to race all the way. Longest corner of the ground, over 70 metres up there. And Michael Levitt, well, he's just worked away into the leg side.
Yeah, just over pitched, angled in a little bit too straight, but played with some panache by Bim Sharkey. Long way out there. Talk about where the threat comes through. And Klein actually looked, he did look a little threatening earlier. He certainly kept things tight. It's been, I don't know how many games that you said he's taken at least 2 wickets, Lenny.
10 consecutively. Didn't bowl as well with the new ball. It's really funny. Both Brandon McMullen and Kyle Klein had similar series. I think one of the games McMullen got a couple up top, but the other games it was actually their threat coming back, which you wouldn't expect necessarily with their pace and bowling style. Got him, and Levitt loves it. He's such a competitor as this man, and the youngster Michael Levitt has taken the big wicket. It's the wicket of Kushal Bertel, and it's a massive moment in the match.
Well, we wondered where the threat was going to come from, where the danger was, and the danger was in the shape of Michael Levitt. Bertel was just starting to wind up, just starting to look dangerous. And he departs for 25. And Nepal have lost their 2nd wicket for 63.
Well, here it is. We're going to see it from the reverse angle. Just a little nip backer, was it? I want to see if we can bring you the other angle, Mel, because don't know if there was any bat involved, was there? Did he chop it on? Or we're obviously a little limited with our cameras today, but
yeah, and where we're seated is about long leg, perhaps. So it is very tricky to see from here.
I think we're going to have the drinks break. We'll try and bring in that replay after this. We'll take a break here too in the commentary box, right on the stroke of that drinks break. Nepal have lost their 2nd, and it maybe makes that first session honours even. Rohit Paudel to the crease, the captain of Nepal. He's in at number 4. Suspect we'll see a period of consolidation and rebuilding with that dismissal of